Well, what is up, everybody? It's been a while since I've been live.
Yeah, man, dude,
Ah,
what a professional introduction, man. Holy
oh
crap.
yeah, I came up with that a while back. I like that. I need to make a new one though. Um, so everybody, we got Professor P here.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about his car, Cookie Monster,
Yeah.
and no name national stuff, and just whatever else pops into our heads to talk about.
Awesome. Awesome.
All
So where
right.
would you like
So
to start first?
just when did you how did you get the car?
Okay, this is a story. So,
Okay.
let's travel back in time to where a lot of you guys don't remember, but let's go back to 1999. And let's get in the Wayback Machine. And I was at that time with my wife, and she had a Honda Civic, and one day it was actually Halloween in 1999. She was actually coming to come see me, and there was a turn in the road on Highway 67 in Santee, California, and she actually ended up going off the road. It was one of those it was like kind of a funky corner, and
Hmm.
she ended up rolling the car, and she rolled over. I called it Lisa's Landing for the longest time because we lived right down the street. She ended up taking up probably a 50-foot of fence there, and it wrapped up in the car, and then she ended up on the frontage road down below. So then it was a brand new car. The car had like 1,000 miles on it. So they ended up fixing it, but her insurance went through the roof. And I've always been into Dodges. I told her, I said, why don't you go get a Dodge Dart or something? And she was just like, sure, okay. So she started looking into the auto traders, and we were looking, and then this is back when you would get the auto trader on Thursday, or
Yeah.
and the internet was very new, and I think it was in the classified. It was in one of the classifieds. It was a 1966 Dodge Dart, and it just happened to be right down the street from her. So she's like, "Yeah, let's go take a look at it." So we drive down there, and I go down there, and I'm looking at this car, and it's got 295 5015s on the rear. I can see headers coming out through the fender well. And I'm just like, oh my God, like this is not. And we pop the hood, and she's instantly grinning, and she's like, dude, I want this car. And I'm just like, and I literally tried to talk her out of it. I was like, dude, you don't want this car. This is a race car. You're going to be. She's like, no, no, no. This is the car I want. And I'm just like, man, it's her money, right? At that point, right? I was
Yeah.
like, whatever. If you want to get it, you get it. And then so we took it for a test drive, and standard Mopar stuff. Alternator's not charging, lights are dim. It's just the stuff that I know that I can fix really good. It had points in it. It didn't run very well at all. We ended up talking. I don't remember what we paid for it, but it was like literally half the price of what the car was really for. And
Oh,
so then
really?
we ended up. She ended up buying it, and that was her car. And I remember I changed the alternator, got it charging. I went to it, because it had just a single. It was just a single field, so I went to a dual field on it, and then
Hmm.
I changed the ignition system to I put an MSD. No, I did the HEI on that one at the first time, so it was just an HEI conversion on that, and that was her daily driver, and that was in El Cajon. She actually lived at our old house. It was before we bought it from her grandparents, and so she was driving that to Grossmont College. That was her daily driver, and she would drive that Monday through Friday. Then she would come up, and I was living in Poway, California at the time, and so she would show up on that car on Friday night. We would change the carburetor over to the 750. We would adjust the timing. We would just tune it all up, and then we would go out and street race that thing all weekend, literally all weekend.
Nice.
And then she would come back. We'd change the carburetor back. She'd drive back home, and that's what we did. That's how that car came to be. Then, we ended up moving in together, bought a house together, and then out of the blue one day, she was driving home. She was out seeing her grandparents one day, and she was driving down. I forget the name of the road, but it was right there in El Cajon, and some guy coming out of a Target just T-boned her right into the side,
Hmm.
and they were going to just total the car because it didn't hit the rockers, but it was like right in the door and right behind the door. And since it's a hard top, it took out that whole section right there.
Yeah.
Come to find out that when the car was getting when they were I told the guy, I was like, no, you're not going to just total the car. This is a 1966 start, and that's all I thought it was at the time. So then the guy who, we hired a person who kind of did an investigation on the car, did some history on it to make sure that they weren't just destroy it. And then we come to find out that this car is kind of a rare deal. Um, Now, in 1966, they had D darts. Now, this by no means is an actual D dart.
Hmm.
The gentleman who bought this car new uh, didn't want to drive a stick shift. So what he did is he took a 66 dart. He had it with no options on it. AC. He got the hopped up 273 in it, right? 8 3/4, had a 727 tranny. Wanted an automatic tranny and AC, but it was basically still had the 8 3/4, the factory narrowed type of deal with the 8 3/4, the 391 gears, and I think it had a posi in it. And so it was like a factory hot rod race car. The headers that were on it, the original headers were the original ones that came with the car from back in the day, and they didn't have like headmen or whatever. These were I forget the name of them right off the top of my head, but they were the ones that came in those cars back then, that with the headers that came in the trunk, and it had all this stuff on it. So, but it was not a D Dart, but it had all some of the D Dart parts on it.
Oh, so they actually had headers in the trunk when you bought the car
Well, no, he when
in the D darts.
well, this is what he was telling me. I didn't know
Oh,
anything
okay.
about him. I'm just telling you this is what he was telling me. I
Yeah,
guess when
yeah.
this car was sold, it was sold with the headers in the trunk on this car.
Hmm.
So then they ended up having to fix it. It took 9 months for them to find the parts from this car, and at the time, this is in '99 at the time, and we got it back in like 2000, and it was still painted red at that time. The car was originally a like a gray green looking color. I don't even know what it was, and then it was painted red sometime before us. And the only reason why I know what the color was is that when they took off the parts, had it inside the you know the metal that was there. But they did a
Was
really
it
good job
almost
with the
like a
paint.
goldish color?
No, it was almost like a cream looking gray
Huh.
of some
Okay.
sort. Yeah, it was. It could have just been the primer. I don't know. But since it was a custom deal, it could have been a custom paint back then. I don't know. There was a lot of history. And then the guy who we ended up buying it from, it was actually one of his friend's buddies' dad's car. So that's how we kind of got a lot of the documentation. I still have all the stuff that where it was bought and so on and so forth. And it was originally purchased in LA, then it went back east to get modified, then it came back, and then by the time it came back, it was late 67 when it was delivered, and then they were coming out with the 1968 darts at that point with the Hemis. So this car rarely got used. In fact, I think it hasn't even hit 60,000 miles, original miles on the car. By the
Damn.
time that we got it, we put almost 25,000 miles on the car ourselves, just street racing it and driving it.
Yeah.
So then, after that happened, it got fixed, and then you were we were texting back and forth, and you asked me a question: when is a car too far gone to go back to stock? Well,
Hmm.
at that point, when the car was technically wrecked and rebuilt, that was when I was just kind of like, okay, this is a race car now because it's been crashed. The door's different. The A pillar and the B pillar are different. The car's been, was clocked back straight, so it's square again. But there's a lot of things that have been changed on it that just don't make it original anymore. So at that point, it became a race car. That's when it was just like, okay, it's a race car. So then I bought her I think I got her
Oh,
a 71 slant six dart. I think is what she got at that point. It was a blue
okay.
one.
My internet did a hiccup thing, I think.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
I'll back up then. So then, that's when it became a race car. And so
Okay.
what I did is we took it off I bought her another car. I think it was a 71 Dart or 70 Dart. I can't remember what it was. We had so many of these damn things. And
Hmm.
so it was a slant six car, and that was her daily driver. And so at that point I took it over, and then that's when it became a dedicated street race car. It was still my driver, but I lived and worked in Poway at the time, and so it became the street racer at that point. That's when it just went through many different evolutions of working on it. And then somewhere in 2007, 2008 is when it became blue, because I just enjoyed the Dodge Viper, that GTS blue. And man,
Mm-hmm. Oh
that's
yeah.
actually, yeah, that's what it is. The only thing I added to it was a little bit of extra green pearl to it, and because the 66 has got those square and those rounded edges on it, so it kind of like has all this like refract. So during the daylight, the thing's just awesome, and it's never been really washed. Like as far as like it's just been hosed off, and that paint's been on there for a long time, and it that's basically the beginning of it as far as how it became a race car up to that point. So, but it's gone through so many evolutions. Just I don't even know where to begin on the evolutions, but that's when it became a dedicated race car. And then that's the slant sixes that's when we got the one for the wife. That's when we've always had a slant six in the stable at some point. That was always a driver that you could just go out there and start and run, and it was always reliably starting and
Yeah, I
running.
was thinking about getting one, but I don't know. I know slant sixes are reliable and everything, but I've gotten just as much reliability out of a 318.
Oh yeah, oh
So,
yeah,
and I just like the V8 thing.
oh yeah. No, I agree. I'm right there with you. Just at the time, I was San Diego is very expensive to live, and
Mm,
we were buying a house, and it's just expensive, and so you either have one race car or you have a street car race car, and then you have a bunch of slant sixes, and that way you could still have your, because people were just kind of throwing them away, and it was kind of, then I kind of got into them like, hey, here's a challenge, like how do I make this slant six run and drive in California traffic, idle in California traffic, which there's a lot of, but still be able to go anywhere I wanted to go. Up and over hills in California is a thing, because where we lived at, you had to go up and over to 4,000 feet 3 times just to get out of California, going like say east, and then you go up to 4,000 foot the last time. Then you drop down below sea level in the Imperial Valley, and into the desert. And so when you're coming home anywhere from on Highway 8, you're at sea level 3,400 foot, and then you go up to 4,000 foot 3 more times. So it's a drive. So it had to be able to do that, and be able to do 80 miles an hour. That was the whole thing, and cruise reasonably and get decent mileage. My goal was 30 miles per the gallon at 70 miles an hour, at and be able to go anywhere in the I wanted to go. That was my goal. I still haven't hit 30 miles per gallon yet. I've gotten close, at 70 miles an hour, but 80 is more of the speeds nowadays, it seems like. But in
yeah.
California, 70 was about
Well,
right.
and
But
30 is, well, even if you're hitting 20, you're still doing what a lot of the normal car, like a newer truck.
yeah,
You
well,
get about, you're
yeah,
still doing good.
yeah, I've believe it or not, the worst mileage I've gotten out of them was with the one barrel carburetor on the freeway.
Hmm.
That The wife's car right now, the Beaver, the Cream Beaver, that car is totally stock. That is bone stock. Even the exhaust is stock, and that car's got 60,000 original miles on it, and it's tuned. When I say bone stock, okay, I don't have points in it. I've got a dual field alternator on. I changed the brakes on it because this is her driver, so I made it
Yeah. Yeah.
safe. Other than that, as far as the engine goes, all I did was just add different adjusters to the rockers, so that way you didn't have to adjust the valves, every week, and that car gets about 18 to 20 miles to the gallon, and that's freeway driving. Now it's got a 276 gear in the rear. It doesn't have a lockup converter, but I did put low ratio first and second in the car, and that helps it around town. In fact, it drives around town like just like a regular car. Like if you were like to get in some, Hyundai Elantra or Toyota Tercel, it would be the exact same type of car.
Well, it
Uh,
sounds like you've been doing the old car daily thing for a while now.
oh yeah, because I couldn't afford a new car.
Well, yeah, that's the way I've been too.
Yeah,
I'd like to go, and I'm working on going to where I just drive older stuff I know how to work on, stuff I could fix real easy.
Yeah,
That's
we
what gets me is there's a few people out there doing that. People like you, like Uncle Tony and that. And
uh
then you'll get on a channel and they'll be like, go on Power Tour. It's like, I live Power Tour. Power Tour is what you do daily.
yeah,
That's because that's all Power Tour is. These guys getting these old cars and driving them a long distance. It's like,
that's
okay,
my
that's every day for me.
that's a Saturday for me because I had
Yeah.
got to go down to Jackson, Mississippi for whatever reason. I jump in the car and it's 200 miles somewhere. That's what I do. And like, yeah, here's the thing is that there was a meme that's out there right now that a hot rod's got a toolbox and parts and extra spare parts in the trunk, where
Hmm.
where a car show or whatever it is, collector car, has got folding chairs, right? That's
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
difference, right? And any one of our cars has got an egg crate in the back. You have your standard stuff. You have coolant, you have oil, you have a funnel, you got some rags, you got a standard kit, and you have an HEI module, a coil, and an extra wire here and there, a spark plug, just your a belt, an extra belt, and that's just what you have. You never know what you're going to need.
Yeah, well, and people act like but that's the way it was back then. Every
Hmm.
car, if a guy knew anything about cars, they had that back there.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah,
really even do that with a new car because you can't keep the right stuff. I'd have the back of my truck filled with spare
yeah.
parts all the time.
But what's funny about that is that is actually what really got me into this car that we just got. We actually have one new car, really new car in the stable because we have three kids, and I have a 13-year-old and a said twins, a boy and a girl twin. We bought the Dodge Journey, and we got the 4-cylinder with it. And I got to tell you, you pop the hood on that, it is like 2005. Right there, it is bitching. It's got a 4-speed tranny in it, everything. All the reviews say antiquated. To me, that means it works. So why change it? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's what antiquated means to me. And it's just regular ATF plus 4 in it, and that I can reach and touch things, and the belt's right there. So to me, I love it because it's new and old, and there's no big TV screen on this thing. My mother-in-law was just here, and we rented some Toyota car for her for a week, and it has this screen up it, and it has a GPS on it constantly going, which knows the speed limit of the road that you're on a heads-up display, and it starts flashing at you, telling you that you're speeding. Do you know that?
yeah, I know I'm speeding.
I know I'm speeding. That's why I'm
Yeah.
speeding, because I'm trying to get to where I'm going. But to
Oh,
me, that's much.
I used to inspect HUD houses, so they'd send me out all over the place, and I had a GPS. And for a while, I had it to where it would actually sound off, but it sounded off. It was like da 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 when you were speeding, but it was like a happy noise. So I was constantly trying to make it make that noise.
Right?
It was
Yeah.
fun, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sitting here looking on my other screen, just so happened to be on Facebook, and there's a bunch of old station wagons. I'd love to get an old station wagon,
Yes.
just
Yeah.
to you know.
That's actually what I was looking for. I was looking for like a '65 Dart that was a station wagon. That's actually
I'm,
what I was looking
I'm,
for. But
I
I
know
just
where one's for sale for 10 grand down here.
I just couldn't that was when I found the Beaver. But at the time it was just kind of like it. The Beaver would just happen to fit. It was like the old lady car, low mileage. Nothing's been messed with. And we bought it for a song because the people couldn't fix it. It still had points in it, so the car barely ran. It still had drum brakes in it, which was dry. There was just a lot of the little knick-knack paddywhack stuff that no one just really did, that just ended up making it, and it ran terrible. But I could just tell that the valves needed to be adjusted, and the
Hmm.
carburetor, was leaking like a sieve because it was in the desert. So all that sand had gotten in there and just kind of, ground down that shaft. So there's a massive air leak right there in the shaft on that one barrel. So I knew right off the bat what I needed to fix. So it was one of those deals. I bought it cheap and just kept it. And it's, as far as what I've actually done to it and how much we've driven it, literally it's one of those. Remember the old guy? You set it and forget it. Remember that
Hmm.
guy on the late night? That's that car. You start it, forget it. It's done. You just It's right now. It's sitting in my trailer because I've got a customer. Oh well, customers. I got a person's car here that I got to start on here really rather quickly, and I hadn't touched that thing in almost 3 months. Went out there, hooked up the battery, pumped it twice, fired right up. I drove it around for a week, parked it. It's just like, well, that's the way. They don't make them like that anymore. You can't do that with a new car. It seems like,
Yeah.
you let them sit for 3 months and then something bad, something electrical is dead on it.
Well, you're not out in the desert anymore. Well, you weren't really in the desert before, I guess, being in California, in where you said you're from.
Yeah, yeah.
But
No, it
I know
was
some of these desert cars, man. Yeah, they don't have a rust on them, but
it's bad.
wiring,
Yeah, the rats ate them up.
wiring,
Yeah, that's my
just
'68 Dart. That's why I called it the Desert Dart. It
hmm
it had rats. It literally had a colony, a family of rats for the past X many years living in there. They were living on top of the engine, and basically they melted a hole. Their pee over the years had melted a hole into the intake manifold. Just their urine had eaten right through it.
mm.
So yeah, it's terrible.
I just had a question on my mind or something else. Okay, well, talking about the wiring, I don't
Sure.
know if it's actually true or not, but they say that the wiring, I don't know about new wiring, but the old wiring, it wasn't actually plastic or rubber it was like soy based or something, something that the mice and rats actually wanted to eat
Could be. I
was the
That's something.
covering over the old wires. So, and then
Wow.
they just go in there and eat it because it was actually something they could eat.
Huh. I just thought it was because they were sharpening their teeth. I think that's what I was always told. I don't know. Maybe it could be.
Yeah, I don't.
But that whole wiring in that '68 Dart, literally, that was the first thing I did. Is I just snipped it all out and threw it away. Yeah, terrible.
So, what have you done to the car getting it ready for No Name Nationals? Because
Oh,
that's kind of my big thing. I'm really big into No Name Nationals. That's like
mm-hmm.
that's my
Well,
vacation every year now.
me too. um, yeah. In fact, it's funny you say that because I just got my Power Glide all done, tested, and it's got all the awesome TCI here tricks. And so yeah, we got some cool stuff. It's I'm going to be putting that in probably this weekend, and then let's see here. Let's see what I can say and what I can't say. Oh yes, Ford 9 inch. That's going to be here. Should have been here. Well, next week, week after, and then after that, we're going to basically fire the damn thing up, and we're going to go. We're gonna go get some testing on it. Get the suspension dialed in, and just it's got Caltrax on it, so we're going to be hitting it on a glide. So before I was hitting it really hard because I had a 3-speed in it, so I'm going to be hitting it a lot softer but with a lot more torque. So I'm just going to have change some of the extension, how it extends, so it's not going to hit so hard. It's going to hit more of a gradual. And then I just got to get the front suspension dialed in because that's got a new I believe that's not a Hemi Denny. It's a Tory Sheldon front end on this thing. So it's got a K member on it in the front. Tubular K member coilovers. So yeah, basically other than that, I mean the car's been a race car for so long time, and I just got to get the cage reserted. But yeah, other than that, it's ready to go.
Okay. And you say you work for TCI. That's part of like the Edelbrock group, right? Isn't that what it's called? Or
Yes,
what it's
so
called?
I am actually technically employed by Edelbrock,
Okay.
and I'm an engineer for Edelbrock, and I work in the TCI division.
And they have
So
all of that in one big building. It's all
yes, Olive Branch.
so okay.
Yeah.
And now this is something I thought about the other night, and it's you're the only YouTuber that works there. You're the only one there that has a YouTube channel,
I
or
cannot,
that you know of.
that I know of, I can't confirm or deny that.
Oh,
That's one
oh,
thing I
oh,
have
oh.
to. There's I can't confirm or deny. So that
Okay.
way I don't
Well, I
feel
was
like.
just saying, because like if other people had a YouTube channel there at your work, you could be like, "Hey, I know this race we could go to."
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. There's I guess the reason why I'm kind of doing this is that TCIs, it just they got some really good. We got some really good stuff coming out,
Mm-hmm.
and what a better way to showcase some of our stuff, than just making a YouTube channel and just kind of putting it in there. Why not? So it's kind of got some really, we got some cool stuff coming out. That's all I can really say, and it's going to be it's going to be kind of a game changer in some aspects. So yeah, so that's kind of why I'm repping it really good, because I'm doing a lot of that work. So
Mm-hmm.
and I'm getting a lot of help, obviously, but we got some cool stuff. That's all I can say.
Yeah, your work is probably like mine, though. You probably can't do a whole lot of filming at work.
None.
Man, I bet you like wish you could. You'd be like, "Oh man, this would be so neat."
Yeah, basically, yeah, because that's what I work in is 100% secrecy, because it's a
Hmm.
industry.
Oh well, yeah. You're
Yeah,
you're the development end of it.
yes, yes. So we can't even tell you what we can do, but I can tell you that we do test things and how we test some things.
Hmm.
We were at a track testing. When we were doing our cooler testing, we have that ZF8HP cooler that came out. We released it at PRI last year.
Hmm.
And how we did some of the testing on that is we were doing 100 passes in one day. I mean, think about that in a
Oh,
drag strip. 5.5 hours is what that takes
I
in a
bet
row.
about halfway through that gets a little boring.
20. So 20.
The first few you're like, "Woohoo, best day
This
of
is the
work
greatest
ever."
job in the world.
Yeah, and then you're like, "Why don't we get like 8 other guys out here?"
Yeah, yeah. So we broke it up into 25 laps is what we did, and because we knew that we weren't really going to get much information beyond that. But yeah, that's how that's how we test a lot of the things, is we actually do track testing, and we're all racers. I mean, we are,
Mhm.
most of the guys there are racers. And they're drivers, and they're builders, and this is what they do. This is their
That's
passion.
why, God, that's why I was kind of like, there's got to be somebody else there's got a YouTube channel. He can't be the only one,
Yeah,
But you know,
yeah. I
it's
can't really say.
there's probably might be guys out there that don't want people to know where they work and stuff like that. I can understand that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Um, Now you not only, I mean, I don't know, because I know you told us about, you were telling us about like the new carburetor Edelbrock's got coming out,
Hmm.
the the coating on comp cams, that diamond whatever coating,
Yeah,
that
DLC, Diamond Line Coating.
yeah.
Hmm.
So do you actually deal with any of that other stuff, or is it
Oh
just
yeah.
you hear people talking about it?
No, no, no. I'm in the R&D department testing that
So
stuff
for
too.
the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm not physically testing it. I mean, they have an R&D department. So how the engineers do it is we get a product, like let's just say the Diamond Line Coating, since that's out.
Hmm.
You have a concept, and then we come up with how we're going to build it, what we're going to do, and then we test it. And then we test it through cycles. Obviously, camshafts are, you're cycling, so you'll test it, 10 million cycles or whatever. And it's no secret. That's how Comp's been doing it for years. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so I'm right there. I see it all, because I'm testing in that same area also. So yeah,
So
you
with
get to see
that
it.
coating, with that, because I know there's a whole lot of things with can we talked about this just, I mean, just yesterday, because I went down a rabbit hole on this
Hmm.
with the cam failures everybody's been talking about, and I mean it just seems like comp is taking a lot of heat from that, from like
Yeah,
everybody, and it's like maybe it's not deserved. You know what I mean?
it's not
But go ahead.
here. So how can I do say this without getting in just basically pissing off the internet? Um,
Go ahead, piss them off.
not, I'm going to say it, and I'm just going to say it. 90% of cam failures, I'm going to say 95% of cam failures are self-inflicted. 100%. There's three major things. One, excessive cranking. People are never going to say, "Oh, that thing fired right up." No, if it turns over more than 10 or 15 times, you're doing cam damage right off the bat. I mean, just 10 rotations, and
Hmm.
then say you're oh, I was 180 out. Well, you've just wiped off all the grease. You have to restab that thing, restart it up, and then you get a backfire. what are you doing in a backfire? You're putting the engine's going to backfire and go the opposite direction. So you've just basically slacked that going the other direction. So everything that you do, also to now driven and lake speed. You should watch some of his stuff about oils. Okay, so
That's what I really wanted to get into was the oils.
yes, so whenever you start putting additives in an oil that's suspended, it has to be mixed, it has to be emulsified, it has to be some sort of mixture. If you just take oil and you put an additive in it, it's not mixed. By the time you start that car up and it's halfway through its cycle, then that engine comes to temperature and that oil gets to temperature, then it's mixed. So you've already done half of your cycling. It would be better off for you put that break an engine into another engine that's clean, start it up, run it through that an engine that's already broken in, and then mix all that stuff up, even though you don't want to do this, but I'm saying this would actually be better for it. Drain it out, put it back into the engine that you're going to start up, because that way it's all mixed up. With especially if you're putting in like that high zinc, stuff into it. Like if you're, what's that, the Lucas Oil high zinc additive.
Yeah.
That stuff has to get to a temperature. So, you want to get something that's got high zinc, high phosphorus right off the bat. And by no means do I think I'm an oil expert on this, but I do know a little bit on it because we deal with camshafts. But whenever you're dealing with that kind of stuff, you just can't just mix it together and think it's going to work right off the bat. Mm-hmm. Another thing that fails, that's on the oils and excessive cranking, is spring pressures. How many times do I watch a video and the guy standing in front of the engine, I just started this car up and it went halfway through the braking procedure and it wiped out a cam, wiped out 15 of all the lifters, and there was only one that survived. And then you're looking at the engine and it's got the inner and the outer spring still on it with the dampener on it, and you're like, dude, you didn't even take the spring pressures off? I mean, that's 101 right there. You got to have, under 90 pounds of seat pressure, maybe under 200 or 115 pounds. I'm sorry, 215 pounds, sorry, of over the nose pressure to break these things in. You want light spring pressure, so that way you can transfer metal back and forth. And then after it's broken, put the inner springs back in. But yeah, there's a lot of different things, as far as, camshafts and taper, it's really hard for a camshaft to go out the door nowadays, especially how Comp Cams checks them I mean, they have an ACO. I mean, that thing's precise to the 0.000001. I mean, that's incredibly precise. It's going to catch 1.5 thou of taper on it's going to catch that. And just to know that these camshafts are coming out, within half a degree of each other. I mean, that's on the high side. Some of these things are, within 1/10 of a degree of each other. That's incredibly, that's precision right there. So,
I work in manufacturing, okay,
Yeah.
and things happen. I will admit things happen. But if you're an engine builder, you should be checking that. You can check taper, and you don't even have to be precise. You just have to see that it's there.
And you can check crown on the lifter.
Yeah, you can check crown on the lifter.
Right up to the light, just put a straight edge on it. You can check crown on lifter. Well, and you can check as simple as just spray painting the push rod. I took a valve cover and I cut the top of them off. And that's how I break in my slant 6 engines, is so I can see it. So I can see if that thing's spinning. When I see one that stops spinning, which I've never had, but I've actually seen on other people's engines. But if I see something that's not spinning, I will literally shut the engine off and then diagnose it right then and there. You don't finish it. You'll see it stop spinning. And I've diagnosed a few with that valve cover, and it was as simple as, it's a $5 valve cover from the wrecking yard that I just cut the top of it off and then sandblasted it, and then made it look pretty, and then that way you can run something and it's not splashing oil all over the place, but you can look right down in there and see what's going on in the valve train. And sometimes, it's as simple as pre-lubing. How many people on a small block Chevrolet have pre-lubed that thing, and they're spinning it over, and they're doing a quarter turn, or they're whatever, and there's not enough oil coming up through through the lifter, coming to the valve, coming through the rocker arm. How many times have you seen that? Like, I've seen it many times where I've actually started pre-lubing the engine, and it took 15 minutes for it to get through the lifter, the grease that was in the lifter because it's not hot, just to get through that, to get through the top, to get to the top end. A lot of the times you're gonna burn up a rocker arm. It's gonna get tight, because it doesn't have enough oil, and any little extra force that's on that push rod, and I'm sorry, on the push rod that's going to be on the lifter on the camshaft, is going to wipe it out. So there's, people say, well, this didn't happen back then. Yeah, you're right. A lot of these didn't happen back in the day because ramps weren't nearly as aggressive as they are now.
Mm-hmm.
And that as far as ramp rates, everybody's wanted more from the exact same type of camshafts. The only way you're going to do that is area under the curve. The only way you're going to get area under the curve with the same duration at 50, the advertised is going to be slightly different because you're ramping in faster, is to have it super aggressive, which means bringing that ramp all the way to the edge of the lifter. And that's the only way you're going to do it. Your 200 numbers and as far as, lobe lift, the only way you're going to get anything faster is just to have more area there. Obviously, with the heads the way they are nowadays, you want to get them as open as fast as you can, so that way you can get all that extra air and get that velocity going inside the head, and that's where you make the more power. So yes, you're correct. This didn't happen back in the old days. Yes, because they were so slow. The ramps were so slow. It didn't make a difference, and spring pressures were so. I looked at I have some of my old Mopar Performance rock springs. I took them down and I put them at the installed height, and they were barely 90 pounds on the seat. And these were considered the performance, whatever. I think they were the red stripe or whatever the hell they were, 340s. They were 90 pounds on the seat and like 240 over the nose. That was considered a performance valve. That's valve spring. Mm-hmm. That's nearly nothing nowadays for anything that's as far as going over the nose. You're going to need something in the 150 on the seat, something in 300 over the nose to control that, how fast that thing is moving, as far as changing direction. So that's I know I went way off subject here, but that's really okay. Yeah, that's really what's contributing a lot to these camshafts, is because ramp rates are so aggressive nowadays. Spring pressures are super critical because there's no one size fits all, because you're going to have a harmonic in the spring, you're going to have a harmonic on the actual ramp, and most people just don't want to take the extra time to take the inner springs out. Excessive cranking. I know there's a few that I'm leaving out but it's a live show, so this is just what I could think of on top.
Yeah.
And then and oils.
With the oils, I just wanted your take on this, because somebody, this guy explained it to me, and to some reason it just really clicked in my head. Is you've got most oils right now, or all oils right now, have detergent in them.
Mm-hmm.
The detergent is a base.
Yep.
The zinc is an acid.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's putting zinc on that cam, the oil is washing it right off.
That's right. That's why you used to use the 30 weight non-detergent oil back in the day. Remember, you used to be able to get that 30 ND on there, and that was exactly why you did that, is to break it in. And that's funny you said that, because a lot of people don't know about that stuff. But yeah, that's a very, very common thing, and all the oils nowadays are super high in detergents.
Even Shell Rotella, everybody is saying Shell Rotella high zinc. No, I had a guy a few months back at the speed shop that I go to tell me, I thought he was crazy, because everything I'm hearing is Shell Rotella is full of zinc. He's like, no, they took it out. They took a lot of it out because these new diesels are having catalytic converters on them now. Mm-hmm. And the zinc is killing the catalytic converters, so they took it out. So you actually have to get a special oil, and like that Driven makes a break-in oil. It's like $44 a gallon. I looked it up.
It's rather inexpensive for how expensive it is to rebuild an engine and all the gaskets and whatnot. So yes, it's worth it.
And you can't go get a quart of cheap oil for. God, you're paying $8 for a quart of cheap oil at AutoZone right now. So,
and luckily where I'm at now in Tennessee, we can actually get the Valvoline VR1 to 2050 over the counter still.
Is that good?
It's
Good
decent,
oil.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's decent oil. There was a company. There's a guy. It's Project Farm. I don't want to set direct traffic to any place, but he does a lot of testing of oils, and he does a lot. He sends them out to, I think it's called Blackstone. He sends them out to a lab, and so he gets a lot
Hmm.
of the stuff back. And and don't quote me, but once again, I'm going off the top of my head here. I think it was like 1100 ppm as far as the Rotella T. I think that's the T4. I think that's as far as zinc, and then phosphorus was like something like 700 or something like that. So it had a decent amount of lubrication package, but that the Valvoline was I think it was like 16, but I believe that driven is even higher than that. So
I
I
got
mean,
it. I got it up right here. The GP1 break-in oil 2050 is 1800 ppm.
exactly. That
They
is an
say no zinc additives needed for this. You
that is
just put
correct
it in
because
there
it's
for break-in.
exactly, and that's actually what I've been breaking in now that I'm here in Tennessee, and driven is literally right across the way from where Comp Cams is still located. It's I just get it. Why not? It's cheap insurance, you know.
Well, yeah. Why wouldn't you? I mean, but I think if people were to start, I want to. This is something I want to talk to you later about. Is
Sure.
I want to do a, I want to do a video. I want to build a motor with a flat tappet cam and have it
Hmm.
run and do the break in right and have it not show people. You know, I want to buy a comp cam because everybody complains about comp. Well, I'm going to buy a
Yeah.
comp cam and just to show people, look, it's not, it's this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Hmm.
At least
And
help.
and that's the reason why I use the word 95%. That's why I'm using that number.
Hmm.
Obviously, there are. If you have a camshaft and you have more than one lifter that goes wrong, let's just say three. That's a self-inflicted problem. A manufacturing defect is going to be one lobe, one
Hmm.
lifter. It's not going to be the whole thing. If they're like, well, yeah, I four of them went bad. But if you start looking at them, the rest of them were on their way out also. You can just tell in the taper. That means that you caught it in time before it made massive destruction, but there was a problem
Yeah.
in the setup, you know.
Yeah,
And and it,
I didn't really want to get into the big tech stuff because I know you
yeah,
do that all the time.
it's
But
okay.
that was just something that came up on me yesterday, and I wanted to talk about it really bad.
Yeah. No, it's fine, man. I'm all about that because I'm going to build a 318 for the 318. Was it the 318 throwdown, or what do they do
There's
that
a
that
318 fest I know that they
318
have.
Fest. I
Yeah.
Dallas always tells me that name, and I always forget it. I can't remember that, but 318 Fest. I've got a couple 318s out there, and I'm going to build a legitimate 318 bore stroke, standard bore and stroke, and I'm going to make it a flat tappet screamer. No power
I
adder, no
wonder,
nothing.
have you been, and I know this would be going to the enemy's thing, but have you ever been to like Holly Mo Party or some of the little things that Holly's throwing right now? So
Only when
they've got LS Fest, they've got Ford Fest, and they've got Holly Mo Party. Holly Mo Party is pretty awesome.
I went to an LS Fest. I think it was in Vegas. I think it was an LS Fest in
These
Vegas.
these these they're all throwing at Beach Bend in Kentucky, Bowling Green, Kentucky, Beach
Okay,
Bend Raceway.
yeah,
I just wondered, get it put a bug in somebody's ear at Edelbrock and be like, hey, we need to do this stuff too. You know, Holly's kicking our ass on this part.
yeah. Well,
You know,
I don't handle any of that stuff. I just design
find us a
parts.
racetrack and
Yeah.
I'll bring a million Mopar guys and we'll have a Mopar fest. Watch.
Right.
Oh, all right. I kind of changed since you hit on it, but I had a second question. Now, this is
Sure.
something I want to do because I'm doing my lives different now. I used to just
Okay.
let people come in and it turned into a bunch of dick jokes. So I'm like, now I'm wanting to do at least an hour with somebody, a fellow YouTuber, and I
Okay.
picked Shane as my first because you're
Why
just
not?
awesome and one smart motherfucker. Um, so I'm going to do a question that we could discuss a little bit.
Sure. Go
And
for
then
it.
after that, there's going to be like 5 rapid fire questions. Just
Let's
first
do
thing
it.
comes to your head.
Awesome.
All right. The discussion question is when is a car no longer a street car? When is it a
Ooh.
dedicated race car?
Okay. Well, that depends on what are you willing to deal with. That is
Mm-hmm.
the question, because that's another question on top of a question. So for me, if this is directed towards me,
Yeah, just for you.
if I cannot drive it with pump gas, then it's a dedicated race car. If I cannot drive it up to a pump, put gas in it. Now, the rules have changed now with E85,
Yeah.
but that would be local to your area. Now, when I was in San Diego, we had an E85 station literally in every town, so you could really drive a legitimate race car that could make 1,500 horsepower on the street. That's pretty simple, and still pass smog, which was really easy. Here, where I live at in Tennessee, there's not E85 everywhere, so you're limited to 93.
I don't understand that either. The
Mm.
corn comes from the Midwest here. Why do we not have the E85 at the gas pumps?
I
I don't
don't
know.
know. And then when I did drag week the last time, I had my car set up and tuned for 93. Lo and behold, we went through Illinois and a few of those states. They only have 91, just like communist
Mm-hmm.
California. So to me, to drive a car when it becomes no longer a street car and a race car is if you have to tote your own gas. That is the simplest answer anyone is. If you have to tote your own gas to fill it up, that is not a street car.
Okay.
That's for me.
That's probably one of the best answers I ever heard because you get people say, "Well, there's a cage in it. It's not a streetcar." Well, you're driving it on the street.
We figure look here the reason why I say it like that, and one more part to the answer to that. If we go a little
Mm-hmm.
longer, I have no problem with that, because you can go and get a Dodge Demon engine, right? And I can put it into an A body. That thing
Yeah.
makes 800 horsepower. You put that into a car, you're going to run 850s, and that car can idle in the Sahara Desert all day long and have the AC on and do whatever it wants to do. An 850 car that you can drive on the street and go anywhere in the world with, technically, was completely unheard of. When I was in the 90s, you had a 10-second car, you had this snort,
Oh yeah,
farting thing.
you were the shit on
You
the
were the
street.
shit, absolutely the shit. I had a 13, then I went to a 12, then I went to an 11, and then I had a high 10 street racer. Very few races I lost because of that, and that was a very, very fast car back then. And but because of that, that's the reason why I had to narrow down the answer, because I used to say, oh, it was because of this, it was because of this. Now, nope, it's just gasoline. Gasoline is your limiting factor, and so whatever you can fill up with it. That's the reason why I say it like that.
Well, and that's what a lot of people don't understand too is that like that Hellcat. The amazing thing about that, yeah, that car runs tens, which is pretty badass.
Mhm.
But it's also in a 4,000 pound car. Those cars are not light by any means.
4,500 with a driver.
Oh my God. It's just crazy.
Yeah, yeah. You can lighten them to 4,000. That's the
Yeah,
lightning
yeah.
package.
All right.
Sure.
Rapid fire question time.
All
There's
right.
going to be one that's going to throw you off. But
Okay.
small block or big block?
Small block.
Quarter mile or eighth mile?
Eighth mile.
Prep or no prep?
Prep.
Shaved or hairy?
I like them shaved.
Okay, okay. There, that was my rapid fire. We're done.
But
And I'm
can I
glad you
justify
came
some of those
out.
answers?
If you want to, yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So the first one was small block, big block. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I did this a little bit on my live last week, and I did this with John Wilburn before. And the reason being is I was a big block guy, 100%. I was a big 440 guy. I was like, 440 is king of the world. But then as I blew up my first 440, I started doing some measurements on it, and I realized that a 400 had a bigger bore.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just like, well, it's got a cast crank. Well, a 383 has got a forged crank for the older ones, right? So then I was just like, oh, wow. Me being Mr. Cheapo because I couldn't have any money, but I wanted to race. I was like, okay, I get a 400. It fits in an A body better because it's got a lower deck. I can get this crankshaft, and then I can run these 906 heads, and then I actually had a real deal set of 915 heads. And I'm going to run these things, and I started spraying nitrous to it, and I started blowing them up because there was no books on how to run them. And then I couldn't find. You go through all the parts of the wrecking yard rather fast, and then I realized, well, I can get these 360s out of these 79 Cordobas that have the brass freeze plugs that were the old cop cars that have been rebuilt. I can get them for $79 with a 30-day warranty. And now I've just taken X amount of weight off the front of the car. I only need to make 50 more horsepower because I'm gaining the extra speed because the car is lighter. I just took all this massive nose weight off the car. Now it's a better drag racer. I can actually physically move the engine back farther, so now I get better weight transfer. So I went, wow, wait a second here, I might be onto something. So then I started into the small block realm. And for me at that time, up to, let's just call it 600 horsepower on the street, I was making about 450 with my setup that I had, and putting about a 200 kit on it, 250 kit on it. You obviously you had to, there was no like progressive systems back then. You were the progressive system, so you had to feather that button. And so I would say right around 600 is what I was putting to the tires on that car. So that's the reason why I went to small blocks. And I used to throw the cranks out of those things all the time until I figured it out. So that's why I was small block. What was the next question?
Well, I had one question on it. You were
Sure.
talking about the 400 and the low deck and the 440.
Yep.
My reason why I'm going with 440 is because I like tunnel rams,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you cannot find. Now, here's
Mm-mm.
a question though: do they
Mhm.
make? Because I would think that they could make a like a set of plates that would just make it to where you could put a tall deck intake. Because with the lower deck, it's going to be farther apart, right?
Yeah,
As
well,
it goes
here's
down, it gets farther apart.
well, no, taller deck would be farther apart. Lower deck would be closer together.
Oh, okay. Never
Yeah,
mind.
but here's
My
the thing
my
though,
thinking went away.
is if you get a low deck engine, okay, and then
Hmm.
you get the max wedge heads, then you can
Yeah.
put a 440 intake on it.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
So,
All right.
and then they make so that way you have raised deck. So then you could just run a lower and then run the taller deck. And then that was a trick back in the early 2000s. Now I know that they make all these different heads for all that stuff now, that are really simple. But that was the trick back in the day. Is you just
Okay.
run, yeah. And that's what I did.
All right. The next question was eighth mile or quarter mile.
Okay, the reason why I'm a big quarter mile person, I grew up in Southern California. That's what we had. My first passes was at Carlsbad Raceway, and then yeah, a bunch of places. The reason why I say eighth is because cars have gotten so fast. The only way you're going to keep a track open is to have an eighth mile track. Because nowadays a car is going to hit 150 miles an hour with literally junkyard parts on it, and Billy Joe Bob with his welder, and he can make 1,000 horsepower out of a car and get it down to 2,500 pounds down the track. He's flying. For the safety thing, I think that an eighth mile is going to be the future. I still like the quarter mile. I didn't like it when they took nitromethane and made it 1,000 foot. I totally get all that. But as far as for me, you, Joe Public, eighth mile is what is going to keep drag racing safer.
Yeah. Well, and you're not putting as much. It's easier on parts because you're not running the car as long. Yeah, you're probably going to run it harder, so
Yeah,
you can run it harder for eighth mile. But still, and I say eighth mile just because everything around here is eighth mile.
exactly.
I live maybe 10 minutes away from Gateway International. Every class they run up there is eighth mile now, and they are,
Hmm.
they run major NHRA events up there and shit, but they still run eighth mile in every class now.
Yeah,
So you might as well, even if you absolutely love quarter mile, get used to eighth mile because they're all going to go to it sooner or later.
I agree. And that's just because safety factor and insurance.
And then, oh, I did have one other question. Oh my God, hold on. Let me ask you this one other question real quick.
Sure.
It's another rapid fire question. Naturally aspirated or power adder?
Naturally aspirated because that engine.
Okay.
If
Okay.
you have to put something on it, you didn't build it right. That's actually a quote from, I think it was, I want to make sure I quote this. I think it was John Yates, I think is what said that. If you have to turbocharge something, you didn't build the engine correctly.
Yeah, but what if you did build the engine correctly and then put nitrous on it?
Yes, but for me, if I had, I'm a I like stick shifts. Okay, that's what I grew up on was drag
Yeah.
racing stick shift cars, and I just love a tunnel rammed car. You're going to run in the mid five. Let's call it a 550. So you get a car that weighs like say 2,300 pounds. You're going to put maybe 600 horsepower to the damn thing, and you get a stick shift. You're going to run right in that 560, 570 range. That's all you really. That's a fun ride. Shifting 3 times, launching a car in an eighth mile. That's all I need. And for me, that would be a fun ride. I would have a great time doing that, and I would just go out and I don't care if I win or lose at that point. It would just be fun. And that's
Yeah.
to me that would be fun. I like the power adders to watch them and so on and so forth. Like I'm going to put a power out on my car to go run the No Name Nationals, but I'm good with nitrous. I've done it pretty much all my life, and it's something I can just take right off, and it's not going to
Hmm.
and I'm going to run a naturally aspirated camshaft. It's a 108 load separation angle. It's not even really designed for it, but I'm just going to spray nitrous to it just to show that it can be done. Because all
Okay.
you're really doing with nitrous is just adding a shit ton of torque, and then it's the instant hit, and then it's slowly fading off. So it just is what it is. But
Okay.
what
And
was
then
question 3?
the other question was prep or no prep.
Okay, and the reason why I say prep is once again going back to the safety thing for us, the regular guys. Now, the professionals and the people who want to do it, no prep is a great show. It's keeping drag racing alive. But for me and everybody else that I like to see race, I like to see a prep track. That way, um, it's just a safety thing once again. That way we keep the tracks open. And I know, oh, go out there and race and run what you're brung and whatnot. And I've done street racing for years, and but the cars weren't as fast back then now like they are now. So I just think that a prep track was for us and the people in this chat and the people on my chat and the people that we're talking to. I think that's just what we need.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with that. I don't, my stance on the no prep is it kind of, but then not really. It
Mm-hmm.
kind of limits the whole just throw a bunch of money at a car and you're going to win a grudge race.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
you got to be smart, but there's a lot of dumb guys out there that'll still throw a bunch of money at a car and send it down the track and put it into the wall and roll it, and then that makes the whole sport look bad.
Yeah, and and just like, and I'm just going to say it live here. If I get to the No Name Nationals, the car that I'm driving is our family history car. That's our car that we drive. If I'm going up against some guy that I think might just drive above and beyond his limits, fuck, I'll let his ass win. I don't care.
Mhm.
To me, who gives a shit? I'm going to be able to drive the car into the trailer and kick my feet up and like, man, that was awesome. Whatever. And it, I'll. It's not like I'll throw race, but if I get up there and I'm just like, I'm not sure. I think this guy's just, whatever. You know what I mean?
Well,
I've done that before.
we've got this outlaw track here in Missouri that they don't even do any kind of tech inspection. You can run anything down that track you want as long as you're wearing a helmet.
Wow.
And it bothers me because it's not. I know what my car. I know how I built my car. I don't know how that guy over there built his car.
Mm-hmm. That's
You
exactly
know,
right.
and there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that just throw some junk together and go.
Is that the one that's that Dave? What's it called again?
It's Bonterre drag strip is the
Oh,
one that I'm
Montero.
talking
Okay, yeah.
about.
There was another one that's called like some crazy. It's up there in Missouri, Crazy Lee's or something like Redneck
Oh, I don't
Bike.
know where that one is you're talking. I know the one you're talking about, and those
Yeah.
guys are nuts.
Yes, I've saw that track. I was like, yeah, yeah.
That and those. That's also a bunch of guys up there that'll fight for no reason.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
just not fun.
yeah.
But then again, I also know guys who've been in drag racing forever, bracket racers. They win all the time. But if you talk to them, every single conversation about a drag race that they went to ends in "I got pissed off because," and I'm just like, if you're getting pissed off every time you go out, why are you doing it?
Yeah, why? It's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be here
Yeah.
having a good time. If you're doing it for a job, then you can get pissed off because you're not making money. But if you're just
Hmm.
here and this is not your career, you're here to have a good time. I got my family here, man. I just want to go out. Hey, let's get competitive when we get up to the line. That's awesome. But
Yeah.
we don't need to kill each other. I mean,
Oh, well, the big thing is, well, the track screwed me out of this and screwed us out of. I'm like, then why do you keep going?
yeah, right, right.
You know. All right. Well, that's 8:30. I thank you for coming on.
Oh, no problem, man. You can have me anytime you like, man. I like your new setup, man. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's professional. It's even beyond me, man. That's awesome.
Oh
I dig
yeah.
it.
Oh, look at this. Look at this behind me.
I
If
see
I put
that.
my arm back here, look, I got purple lights for the background.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm
It's
ready to start.
legit.
I'm ready to start gaming, doing these gaming streams. Some of these. No, I'm not. But
That's awesome. All right, man. Well, thanks for having me on, man. It was awesome, and I
oh
like the
yeah.
rapid fire questions, especially the last one that we didn't need to touch on. Well,
No, no, we don't
technically,
need to touch on that. No,
yeah, but
you got
everybody
a
knows where I
job to
stand on
protect.
that one. So yeah,
You got a job to protect.
that's right.
Um, so plug. What do you got to plug before
Yeah,
we go?
the VRS carburetor, man, that's going to be going on the Slant Six. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a little short this weekend. About I'm taking the throttle body fuel injection off because I'm a carburetor person. I wanted to give it a shot. Now I am going to be doing the multi-port fuel injection on it. That's coming. But for right now, I'm going to go back to the Edelbrock just to get the car running. And I think the weekend after, I'm going to put the VRS on it. And I think I'm going to put the first VRS. It's going to be 650 onto a slant six, and I'm going to run it down the 8th mile. But I do have something else coming. If you guys know that I made an adapter plate, so I can put a small block style, transmission to a slant six. So I designed this plate so that way you can bolt it up. So I'm going to be putting an A500 transmission to a slant six, which means I can put a 355 gear in my car with a 277 first, and then I can have that overdrive. And then we're going to go back to the tracker. We're going to test all these carburetors and fuel injections again. So
Cool.
that's coming. That's coming.
All right. So in your Slant
Oh,
Daily Garage, everybody
yeah.
go check them out if you haven't. I don't know why you're here. You
I
know.
actually got one more thing, and someone actually Dean
Oh, okay.
reminded me.
Okay.
I bought Plan Z from Mr.
Oh
Uncle
yeah,
Tony.
yeah.
Yes.
Have you
And
picked that up yet?
no, not yet. I'm not going to pick it up until after the No Name Nationals.
Okay, okay.
It's going to be a little while. He's got to do some stuff to it, get some parts off of it because he's going to be putting it all into a different car, so that way he
Mhm.
can use it as a rolling car. My goal with that, with Plan Z, is I'm going to take it to drag week. I'm going to make it drag week safe. And somehow I'm going to try to figure out a way. Now I don't know what it needs. I don't know whatever, but I'm going to make it drag week safe. And I'm going to put a 4-speed in it. I'm going to take a naturally aspirated slant six. And my goal with Plan Z is to do a 13-second average at the end of the week. That's my goal, and
Okay.
survive the whole thing. Now, because it doesn't make much power, I can probably make a 250 horse slant six, survive that. I'm going to probably use a T5, like an S10 transmission, so I have an overdrive, and that way I can put some gear in the damn thing and let her eat. And I
What did
hopefully,
that car weigh? Do you know offhand what he got that thing down to? I know it was in the two. It was in the twos.
I think it's
I
like
just I just keep in the back of my head like, what if you put a big block in it?
no,
What
slant
if you put
six,
even a 318 in it? It'd be
slant
a
six.
badass car.
Plan Z will always be, you can mark my words, will always be a slant six car, 100%, because that's actually what of that car. That's what he started. That's what I'm going
Hmm.
to continue. And he was saying when I was talking to him about buying it, he says couldn't go to a better person. Slant Daily Garage. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And so I would like. I mean, that's going to be cool, man. And it's going to be me and the wifey. We're gonna do that. Me and her. It's
That's
gonna be a
cool.
week vacation, and we're gonna spend it sweating somewhere in the Midwest somewhere, going between cornfield after cornfield in a car that's tacking 3,000 RPM at 60 miles an hour. But
Well, and now I just thought of it. That's cool because they don't all have to have big blocks or V8s in them. How many of them did they make? You can have one to keep a slant six.
yeah, and I got to tell you, and this is the truth. Everywhere I take either the Beaver, the the green car, the Lizard King, or I'm telling you, wherever I take Plan Z, whenever I pop the hood, I have more people around a slant six than there was the guy at that Cobra. He had an original Carroll Shelby Cobra over there, right? And it showed up, it pulled up, and it was, blah, 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 and then, they got that little look. But I got to tell you, when I popped the hood on the Lizard King, they came over, and I heard at a minimum of 10 stories of how they drove one of these things through college. They wanted to hear it start up. They wanted to hear it run. They wanted to hear all the stuff. They wanted to know, what did I do to it? Why does it look like this? No one even talked to that guy with that Carroll Shelby 427 side oiler with whatever. They just looked at it and walked on.
Yeah,
Literally, just that was
they
that.
take go on any web page or magazine article or YouTube video and learn all they want to about that car.
That's right. And then, but mine, they were just, I've had the car, I had the intake off, and pop in the trunk, and they're like, "Man, where'd you find that? Oh, this is just a California car. This is considered a rusty California car." They're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's why I got it for nothing, literally nothing." So, but yeah, that's the reason why I'm really into the slant sixes. And someone put up there, One Eye Cat talked about the aluminum block 225. Yes, I have seen those. I have messed with them. Not my bag, baby, because if they're just they have a floating bore in those things, and you know, if I did one, what I would do is I would like on the I used to do a lot of things with Hondas, and
Hmm.
we used to have a bore support sleeve that we would put in there. So you would mill out the top of the block. You would insert this basically this girdle that goes into the block, so that way it supports the top of the bore. If I were to ever do an aluminum block 225, that's what I would do to so that way because they're notorious for blowing head gaskets because when you RPM them, that thing will start to walk because there's nothing supporting the top of the deck except for the cylinder that's bolting down, and the cylinder is cast iron still, so they're heating and expanding at different rates. If someone could ever come up with an aluminum block 225, that would actually be a game changer at that point because then you could actually, I'm sorry, not aluminum block, I'm sorry, aluminum head, 225 head for that. That would change things because that way you could actually put, a head on there. They would expand and contract at the same rate and you wouldn't be
Yeah.
blowing head gaskets.
All right. Well, guys, here's how I'm going to work this. I'm going to end this live.
Sure.
I'm going to take a little break, and then I'm going to start up the next live where I just let everybody in. I'm going to start calling that one the Weird Hour. It's just going to be the Weird Hour from the get go. So so keep your eye out. If you want to come back in and do the normal hangout, I'll be back in probably about 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So thanks again, Shane, for coming out. Thanks everybody for being here, and
Awesome.
we'll see y'all later.
You guys take it easy.